and today I'm going to briefly go over how I implemented a Plotly dash graph into a Django web app. So this is just the small little kind of dashboard page I made for a stock tracking web app in Django. As you can see, it's got the kind of the Bootstrap nav bar. I have the Vantage API behind this for data. So I'm calling on the Vantage API and pulling live data from them. So it'll display which stock you're looking at, the current day. And then here is the Plotly dash graph. So let me zoom out there. So yeah, this is just a candlestick graph. We've all seen these before, and you can zoom in on them. When you mouse over them, it gives you a little modal pop-up. So this is a really nice interactive graph. I am actually astonished at how much I like this for looking at price action. Um, so yeah, you see the wicks, everything. And this candlestick graph, I'll show you in a second how I made it. But it was made with the Plotly Dash framework, which makes data visualization in Python super easy, super easy. Um, Besides the Plotly dash graph, I have some cards here, just displaying some information, some company fundamentals, right? The earnings per share, profit to earnings ratio, market cap, and the yearly high. I kind of just, wanted four and threw one random one in there. But there's actually so much fundamental data on companies that you can find in the Vantage API. So there's no shortage of this kind of stuff. And I'm actually thinking about building a more table-like, you can see I'm kind of specking out, building more table-like um, visualization for company fundamental data, but we'll see how that turns out. Um, as for the implementation of the dash graph, I'll show you my Django view. So my Django app itself is set up a very standard way. I'll show you my pip file so you can see what dependencies I have. Um, standard. This is specific to the project I'm doing, but if you work with data, you've seen these before and probably this. Um, there are a few dependencies that Django Plotly Dash will require you to pip install, but that's just fine. It'll go over that in the docs. It's pretty straightforward. Now, as for how you render and create one of these graphs, well, so here's the logic of my app here. So here I'm just utilizing the API to call and get some time series data about a specific stock, right? About a specific stock. That's what I'm passing into this get intraday argument about a specific stock. And here's where I define that stock variable, INTC. And I'm putting those into a pandas data frame. Why? Well, it's pandas is just great for data visualization and cutting up and editing and cleaning up data. So I'm comfortable with it, so I prefer to still use it. Um, Now we're going to get into the actual Plotly graph here. So if you've built a Plotly graph, you'll see that this is where you define the figure. And I have imported these, obviously, just like you would if you were doing this in a separate file on its own. So you build the figure, right? And what data are we passing into it? Okay, well, we're going to pass into it five things, including the index, right? So we need the x-axis first of all, is a major piece of the data. That's just going to be the index of our data frame. So that's going to be, the x-axis, the time. Now the y-axis is a little bit trickier in a candlestick graph. Why? Because this isn't just a straight line. We're not looking at one point on the y-axis. And unlike, other bar graphs, there's just more components to this. So what are the components of a candlestick, right? So let's look at this. Let's zoom in on one. Look at that. So what makes up this box? Well, first of all, you have to know the close of the last one and the open of the first one to construct two candlesticks, right? You also need to know the high and low of each one, right? because that's where the height is going to be the high and the bottom is going to be the low, right? That's what makes the shape of the box. So we go back in and we pass all of these from our data frame into the data variable of the plotly dash figure. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to translate this. I like to say translate because we're gonna shift it from Python to HTML. You know, this is just something I got from the docs. This is what's going to allow us to render this in HTML. So we return that variable, that HTML version of our candlestick graph. And then we go down here and we're going to pass that into our context right here. With the key of candlestick, you can give the key of whatever you like. And the value is going to be the function itself, right? So I define this as a function, so we're going to pass it into the context as a function. Here's all my other, context. Quite messy at the moment, quite messy. So then we get to the HTML, and besides your required JavaScript dependencies, we're going to have to do one thing, and that is going to be render that data from the context. And if you're familiar with Django, you'll know that this is how you most often render, which is with the two curly brackets, and you call on the key of your context, and that's it. That's going to render your graph on your web page. Just a little more info about the project. I did use Bootstrap. That's how I get these nice even squares. Just a little touch up on the CSS. I made some custom cards with a little box shadow just to give it more depth. And yeah, but mostly Bootstrap is how I did this. It gives you the flex boxes and makes it mobile friendly right away, right? So yeah, I'd like to post this on, I have it on my GitHub currently, but I'll post a link to the repository, and you guys are welcome to use any and all parts of this for future projects. This does work as is. Don't forget that it is on Postgres. But yeah, just follow the Django-plotly dash documents and you'll pretty well be on your way there. So, thanks, guys.